The knock came at 6 a.m. Not the polite tap of a neighbor. Not the hollow thud of a delivery driver already turning away. This was the knock of people who didn't need permission. DeShawn Freeman, 14 years old, honor roll student, part-time grocery bagger at Morton's Market, sat up in bed in the apartment he shared with his grandmother and stared at the door. 3 more knocks. Heavier. His grandmother was already moving, her slippers shuffling across the linoleum, her voice sharp with the kind of worry that came from living 72 years in a world that knocked like this. "Who is it?" "Ma'am, we need to speak with DeShawn Freeman." DeShawn's stomach dropped. He hadn't done anything. He knew that. But knowing didn't stop the fear that came with strange men at the door before sunrise. He pulled on sweatpants and walked out. His grandmother stood with the chain still latched, peering through the gap. "My grandson is 14 years old. You got a warrant?" "No, ma'am. We're not law enforcement." "Then who?" "We're here on behalf of Colonel Richard Hastings, United States Navy. Retired." Silence. DeShawn's grandmother looked back at him. He shook his head. The name meant nothing. She unlatched the chain. 4 men stood in the hallway. Not cops. Not military exactly, but something close. Pressed jackets. Straight postures. Eyes that saw everything. The one in front was older, maybe 50, with silver at his temples and a scar that ran from his jawline into his collar. "Mrs. Freeman." "DeShawn." He nodded to each of them. "My name is Marcus Hale. May we come in?" 6 months earlier. November. The first time DeShawn saw the old man, he was struggling with a bag of groceries outside Morton's Market, his cane slipping on the icy sidewalk. No one stopped. People walked past, heads down, breath clouding in the cold. DeShawn had just finished his shift. For hours of bagging groceries, hauling carts, smiling at customers who didn't see him. Tips were rare. Thank yous rarer. He'd earned $32. The old man stumbled. Caught himself. The grocery bag split. Cans rolled into the street. DeShawn moved without thinking. "I got it," he said, jogging over. He scooped up the cans, soup, beans, cat food, and grabbed the torn bag before it spilled further. "You okay?" The old man stared at him. White, 70-something, with a face carved from hard years and eyes that didn't blink much. "I'm fine. Your bag's not." DeShawn smiled. "I work here. Let me get you another one." He darted back inside, grabbed a double-bagged replacement, loaded the groceries carefully. When he came back out, the old man hadn't moved. "Where you headed?" DeShawn asked. 2 blocks. "I can manage." "It's icy. And you're limping." The old man's jaw tightened. "Pride, maybe. Or something else." "I don't need help." "I know," DeShawn said. "But I'm offering anyway." A long pause. Then the old man nodded once. They walked in silence. The old man leaned heavily on his cane, his breath labored. DeShawn mashed his pace, carrying the groceries like they weighed nothing. 2 blocks became 3. The building was old, narrow, with cracked steps and a door that stuck. "Thank you," the old man said. His voice was rough and used to the words. "No problem." DeShawn handed him the bag. "You shop there a lot?" "Every Monday." "Cool. I work Mondays. I'll keep an eye out." The old man studied him. "Why? Why what? Why help?" DeShawn shrugged. "Because you needed it." He turned to leave. "Boy." DeShawn looked back. "What's your name?" "DeShawn." The old man nodded. "Richard." It became routine. Every Monday, DeShawn's shift ended at 4. By 4:15, Richard would appear, limping through the automatic doors, cane tapping the tile. DeShawn would find him in the aisles. Always the same ones, soup and canned vegetables, and the cheap cat food. And when Richard checked out, DeShawn would be there. "I can carry it." "I know. So let me." And Richard would nod, and they'd walk. 2 blocks. 3. Sometimes 4 when the snow was bad. Richard didn't talk much. Asked questions, though. "You in school?" "Yes, sir." "Freshman?" "Grades?" "Mostly A's. 1B in algebra, but I'm working on it." "Your folks?" "Just my grandma. She raised me." Richard nodded. Didn't pry. But he started talking too. Little things. The weather. The city. Once, he mentioned he'd been in the Navy. "Long time ago," he said. "Different world. You miss it?" Richard's face hardened. Every day. December bled into January. The cold deepened. Richard's limp worsened. One Monday, he stumbled on the ice outside his building. DeShawn caught him, held him upright until his breathing steadied. "You should use a walker," DeShawn said. "I should do a lot of things." Richard's voice was tight, angry, but not at DeShawn. You got family? Not anymore. DeShawn didn't ask more, but he started staying longer, helping Richard up the steps, making sure he got inside okay. You don't have to do this, Richard said one evening. I know. Then why? DeShawn looked at him, at the old man who never smiled, never softened, but always waited for him on Mondays. Because nobody else does. Richard said nothing. But the next week, when DeShawn showed up, Richard had a thermos of hot chocolate waiting. For the walk back, he said gruffly. DeShawn grinned. Thanks. They kept walking. Through February. Through March. And then, one Monday in April, Richard wasn't there. DeShawn waited. Checked the aisles. Asked the cashier if she'd seen him. That old man. Nope. Not today. DeShawn's chest tightened. He left work and walked to Richard's building. Knocked. No answer. He knocked again. A neighbor opened her door. You looking for Richard? Yes, ma'am. Ambulance took him yesterday. Don't know where. DeShawn's stomach sank. He walked home in silence, the thermos still in his backpack, half full. And he didn't see Richard again. Not until the men knocked. Mrs. Freeman made coffee she didn't offer. The men sat in the cramped living room, too large for the space, their presence filling every corner. Marcus Hale took the armchair. The others stood. DeShawn sat on the couch beside his grandmother, her hand tight on his knee. Colonel Hastings passed away 4 days ago, Marcus said. No preamble. No softening. DeShawn's throat closed. He'd known. Somehow. But hearing it made it real. I'm sorry, he managed. So are we. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The colonel was a hard man. Decorated Navy SEAL. 3 tours. Silver Star. Purple Heart. He led men through hell and brought most of them back. DeShawn's grandmother inhaled sharply. He was a SEAL? For 26 years. Marcus's gaze shifted to DeShawn. When he retired, he didn't do well. Lost his wife to cancer. His daughter to a car accident. No grandkids. He shut everyone out. Moved to that building and barely spoke to a soul. But he had a cat, DeShawn said quietly. Marcus smiled. Barely. Sergeant. Ugly orange thing. The colonel loved that damn cat. Why are you here? Mrs. Freeman's voice cut through. Sharp. Protective. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Thick. Cream-colored. Expensive paper. He handed it to DeShawn. The colonel left instructions. A will. Most of it's handled. But this part. He wanted you to have it. DeShawn stared at the envelope. His name was written on the front in careful, shaky handwriting. DeShawn Freeman. Open it, Marcus said. DeShawn's hands trembled. He slid a finger under the flap, tore it carefully. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. 2 pages. He read. DeShawn, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good. I was tired. I'm not a man who believed in sentiment. I don't believe in fate or divine intervention or any of that. But I believe in actions. And yours meant something. You didn't know who I was. Didn't know what I'd done or where I'd been. You just saw an old man who needed help, and you helped. Every Monday. For 5 months. You carried my groceries. Walked me home. Made sure I didn't fall. You asked how I was, and you listened when I answered. You didn't want anything. Didn't expect anything. That's rare. I watched you, DeShawn. I asked around. Your teachers say you're smart. Disciplined. Your boss says you're the most reliable kid he's ever hired. Your grandmother says you're the reason she smiles. You remind me of the man I served with. The good ones. The ones who did the right thing because it was right, not because anyone was watching. So I'm doing something I should have done when I was alive. I'm saying thank you. And I'm giving you a chance. I've set up a trust. Full ride to any college you get into. Living expenses covered. Books, housing, everything. If you want the Navy, there's an ROTC scholarship waiting. If you want something else, the money's there. You've got potential, son. Don't waste it. One condition. You keep being the kind of person who stops to help. We need more of those. Colonel Richard Hastings, USN, read. DeShawn read it twice. Then a third time. He couldn't breathe. This is real? Marcus nodded. The trust is managed by 3 of us, men who served with the colonel. It's ironclad. Fully funded. $1.2 million. Mrs. Freeman gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. I don't. DeShawn's voice cracked. I just carried his groceries. You did more than that. Marcus's voice was firm. You treated him like a person. You showed up. Every week. You didn't ask for anything. You just cared. But I didn't know. That's the point. Marcus leaned back. The colonel didn't want gratitude from people who knew what he'd done. He wanted to see if anyone still gave a damn about a grumpy old man with a cane. You did, said one of the other men. Younger, with kind eyes. That's why he chose you. DeShawn's grandmother pulled him close. She was crying, silent, shaking tears that soaked into his shoulder. My baby, she whispered. My sweet baby. Marcus stood. The others did too. There's paperwork, details, but we'll handle all that. For now, just know, your future is secure. The colonel made sure of it. DeShawn looked up, his own eyes burning. Can I see him? Say goodbye. Marcus paused, then nodded. The funeral is Friday. Arlington National Cemetery. We'll send a car. Friday came cold and clear. The car was black, polished, silent. It picked up DeShawn and his grandmother at 8 a.m. and drove them 2 hours south. DeShawn had never been to Arlington. The rows of white headstones stretched forever, perfectly aligned, each one a life, a sacrifice. They stopped at a pavilion near the main gate. Dozens of people were already there. Men in uniform, a few women, all older, all standing with the same straight-backed stillness. SEALs. Marcus met them at the entrance. He'd have liked that you came. The service was brief, military, precise. A chaplain spoke, then Marcus, then 2 others. They talked about missions DeShawn didn't understand, about brotherhood and sacrifice and the kind of man who led from the front. But Marcus ended with this. The colonel spent his life protecting people who never knew his name. And in the end, one kid stopped to see him, to help him, to care. He looked at DeShawn. That meant everything. The rifle salute cracked the air. The bugler played taps. They folded the flag, sharp and reverent, and Marcus carried it to the front row. But there was no family to give it to. Marcus turned and walked to DeShawn. He wanted you to have this. DeShawn took the flag, heavy and warm in his hands, and something inside him broke. He cried. His grandmother held him, and the men stood around them in silence, and the wind moved through the trees. When it was over, Marcus walked them back to the car. You'll do good things, DeShawn, he said. I know it. How? Marcus smiled. Because the colonel knew. And he was never wrong about people. Spring turned to summer. The news spread slowly at first, whispers at Morton's market, conversations in the neighborhood. The kid who carried groceries for an old man. The SEAL who left him everything. People looked at DeShawn differently now. Some with respect. Some with envy. Some like he'd won a lottery he didn't deserve. DeShawn ignored most of it. He kept working at Morton's. Kept bagging groceries. Kept going to school. But things had changed. The trust was real. Marcus and the other trustees set up meetings with financial advisors, college counselors, lawyers who explained things in language DeShawn barely understood. His grandmother cried every night for a week. Happy tears, mostly, but also grief. That man, she said one evening, holding Richard's letter like it was sacred. He saw you, really saw you. I didn't do anything special, Grandma. Yes, baby, you did. DeShawn applied to 6 colleges. Got into 5. MIT accepted him with full honors. The trust covered everything the scholarship didn't. He chose engineering. Richard had mentioned, once, that the Navy always needed engineers. Smart ones. Ones who cared about the people in the field. If you're going to build something, Richard had said, build it right. Lives depend on it. DeShawn remembered. Freshman year was hard. Harder than he'd expected. The classes were brutal. The students were brilliant. Most came from money, from prep schools, from families with legacies. DeShawn came from a 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood people wrote off. But he worked. Late nights in the library. Extra sessions with TAs. Study groups where he taught himself to ask for help. And every Monday, he called his grandmother. How you doing, baby? Tired. But good. You eating? Yes, ma'am. And you're being kind to people? Always that question. Yes, ma'am. Good. That's all that matters. Sophomore year, DeShawn started a campus organization, Warriors Watch. It was simple. Students volunteered to help veterans in the Boston area. Grocery runs, lawn care, companionship. The things DeShawn had done for Richard. It started small. 12 students. 3 veterans. By the end of the year, it was 50 students and 20 veterans. The local news picked it up. Then a veterans block. Then a national morning show. They wanted to interview DeShawn. He almost said no. But Marcus called. The colonel would want you to tell the story. Not for you. For the others. So DeShawn sat in a studio and talked about Richard. About the limp and the cane and the groceries. About the Mondays. About the letter, the host cried. So did half the crew. The segment went viral. Within a week, Warriors Watch chapters started forming at colleges across the country. Students reaching out to isolated veterans, carrying groceries, shoveling snow, just showing up. DeShawn didn't know how to feel about it. He just wanted to help one person. Now it was hundreds. You started something, Marcus said when they spoke. The colonel knew you would. Junior year, DeShawn met Sergeant. The orange cat Richard had loved. A neighbor had been caring for him, but she was moving. She reached out through the trust, asking if DeShawn wanted him. He flew home for the weekend. Sergeant was old, fat, missing half an ear. He hissed at DeShawn for the first 10 minutes. Then he climbed into his lap and purred. DeShawn laughed. Okay, you can come. His grandmother shook her head. You sure? That cat's mean. He's perfect. Sergeant moved into DeShawn's dorm. Against the rules, technically, but the RA looked the other way. The cat slept on DeShawn's desk while he studied. Knocked over his coffee. Left hair on everything. DeShawn loved him. Richard would laugh. He told Sergeant one night. You're still a pain. Sergeant purred. Senior year, DeShawn graduated summa cum laude. His grandmother sat in the front row, wearing her church hat, crying before the ceremony even started. Marcus was there too, and 4 other SEALs who'd served with Richard. They stood when DeShawn's name was called. A standing ovation from men who didn't give them lightly. After the ceremony, Marcus pulled him aside. The colonel would be proud. I wish he could see it. He can. Marcus handed him something. A small box. He left this too. Instructions were to give it to you at graduation. DeShawn opened it. Inside was a military challenge coin. Navy SEAL insignia on one side. On the other, engraved words, for those who carry others. DeShawn's throat tightened. He had it made a month before he died, Marcus said. He knew you'd make it. DeShawn closed his hand around the coin. I'm going to work for a defense contractor, designing medical evacuation systems. Better equipment for field medics. Marcus smiled. He'd like that. I'm going to keep Warriors Watch going too. Expand it. Even better. They stood in silence. Then Marcus saluted. DeShawn, surprised, saluted back. You're one of us now, Marcus said. Not because he served. Because you embody what we stood for. 5 years later, DeShawn stood in Arlington again. Not for a funeral. For a memorial. Warriors Watch had grown into a national nonprofit. Thousands of students. Hundreds of veterans helped every week. They were dedicating a bench in Richard's honor. Simple stone. Bronze plaque. Colonel Richard Hastings, USN, red. A warrior who believed in quiet kindness. DeShawn ran his fingers over the engraving. His grandmother stood beside him, older now, but steady. Sergeant had passed the year before. Buried in DeShawn's childhood backyard, under the tree where he used to sit. You did good, baby, his grandmother said. I just carried groceries. You did more than that. She took his hand. You saw a person. You cared. That's everything. DeShawn looked at the rows of white headstones, the endless sacrifice, the lives that had mattered. He changed my life, DeShawn said quietly. No, baby. You changed his. They stood together as the sun set, the sky turning amber and soft. And DeShawn thought about Mondays. About a limping old man and a split grocery bag and the choice to stop. The choice that had changed everything. He would keep choosing it. Every day. For the rest of his life. Because someone had seen him once. Had believed in him. Had given him a chance. And now it was his turn to carry others.